What's going on, everybody? We're back. Freedom Investor Radio. I'm John Pearl. Today I'm joined by Kenny Johnson, who is the owner of East West Capital. I'm excited to get into it. Kenny and I connected through a mastermind that we're in. So Kenny, give us the high level. Tell us how it started in the real estate investing space and tell us how it's going.
What's up, everybody? Hey, John. Thank you so much for having me on today. High level, how I got started. All right. So I worked for just about 10 years in the same company. Uh, it was a landscaping, home renovation, home management property group that I was the first full-time employee. Uh, it was me and the owner. I worked there for 10 years and we grew the company pretty big. Well, we grew the company and it was awesome. I got to see a company scale up from two to, we had, I think, 70 employees when I left and like 30 trucks, and we were doing all sorts of different things. But that job sucked a lot of my life away. To be honest, it was in my 20s. For anyone listening in their 20s, you got a lot of energy to give out, hopefully, and you want to get some things done, and that's how my mindset was. I wanted to just conquer the world. So it wasn't until I turned 30, and I'm 34 right now, but I turned 30 and I realized, man, those last 10 years, what will my next 10 years look like? There was kind of an aha moment of, shoot, like I need to be thinking about my future. And positioning myself in a way that, brings me the life I want, the time that I want to have with my family, and the money that I want to have to travel or do whatever. And I wasn't connecting the dots from what I had been doing. So high level view was I went to a Rich Dad Poor Dad seminar, trying to learn about real estate, and thankfully was able to learn enough from that weekend class. It cost me $500 to buy my first rental 6 months later, and then sort of go from there.
Got it. Yeah. So similar to myself, different line of business. I was a W-2 employee working for a large company out here in California. Still am, still at the same company. But yeah, like mid-20s, late 20s, kind of had this realization that time is going to be more important to me as I get older. And for me, it was also Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read the book, hear that a lot, but I had this light bulb moment, started going down the rabbit hole, learning about real estate, all the different niches that you can make money in. So what was it specifically for you? Or you mentioned you bought a property, and are you still focused on the single family space, or what kind of properties are you looking at these days?
Yeah. Um, Definitely will resonate with you on the time versus money. And also, how was I getting money? Was I working for it, or was my money or other people's money working for me? So the class opened up I'll say class, it was like, 2 or 3 day thing that people got up and started talking about, different scenarios. And I started realizing that I didn't have to have these credentials to get started. I think that was something that early on, people asked me, do you have a license? Do you have to be a realtor? You know, business, marketing, blah, blah, blah. And it's no, 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 no. It's very much a self-taught business. Of course, you can take different things to help you along the way. And there's a lot of pitfalls that you can fall into if you're not, protecting yourself through wise counsel and maybe other people. But I I learned about the Burr method, and basically it's a way to buy a property that if you buy it low enough, fix it up. B is buy or renovate. Then you can do what's called a cash out refinance, where you're pulling equity out of the house, um, rent it out. I think the rent is actually third, so I might have mixed that up, and then repeat. But I did that for this first property, and what I ended up doing was I made $16,000 on the cash out refi. So after all my expenses were put out, I ended up making 16,000, and then I still had 25% of equity in the house after that 16,000, which was like another 40. And I was cash flowing about $200 a month. So my strategy has been repeat that as many times as possible. But $200 a month doesn't really pay the bills, not enough to kind of quit your day job to do that. So along the way, I've been doing some flips and wholesales, and those stepping stones have basically carried to where I am today, which is full time real estate investor for the last 2 years, and approximately $2 million of assets under management. And that's just been really a one man show. And and we could probably get into this later, but I'm no longer wanting to do one man show kind of things. I wanted to be on a team and scale faster.
Excellent. So when you did, what was the process like? You were working with the landscaping company. At what point did you make the jump? What was going through your head? Why did you decide to go into real estate full time?
Yeah, there was a long battle for me. I know people that, hey, they hear a class, they read a book, and boom, they're on to the next thing, and they left one thing. I was very loyal to my group, to my job, my boss, my company. It wasn't like they were, cracking the whip and I was hating my life. But I did have a really hard time, a struggle in figuring out, how do I transition out of here? What does my launch pad look like? And when I bought that first rental, November 2019, everything was new. I really felt like I didn't know what I was doing, but I was learning a lot, like, every day. And I think that's what kind of I started really gravitating toward this development of my mind and of, like, my resources and doing things. So when I kind of got a taste of that growth and development in this new thing that was mine and not someone else's, um, books, podcasts, everything, just pouring myself into education. And I had a good friend. I don't know if anyone's out there and is isolated. Good luck. I feel like it can be a dark place in your mind and just doubt and worry and analysis paralysis. But I had a good friend who I think, we went to that class together, and I was just, meeting him every Friday. We were talking. We were kind of doing the same thing at the same time in regards to just our walks of life, family, trying to raise a family, everything. So he helped me sort of just be a sounding board. I'm a big time collaborator. I like voicing things in my head. It just helps make sense of, like, what my next steps are. So it took me about 18 months or so to figure out this can work full time. Um, and what the turning point in that story was, my boss actually called me one day, and he knew I was doing real estate stuff. It wasn't like, a secret, but I had responsibility in the company and definitely wanted to communicate, where my energies are being spent as best I can, because I was on salary and there's kind of like that, results type of position versus, did you work 40 hours or 60 hours this week? So he called me and he says, I just need to know, are we your A or your B? Is this your plan A or your plan B? And when he asked me that, it became real estate became my A. It just like it just everything, like, oh. And he didn't, like, ask me he didn't say, like, you need to answer this second, but, like, when he asked me, it almost like, duh, like, okay, this is now my A. So, like, company I'm at is now my B. And, like, 2 weeks later, I gave him my 4-month notice. It wasn't even a 2-week notice. It was like, "Hey, I'm giving you 4 months. My daughter will be born in 4 months. When she's born, I'm out. I'll train whoever you need me to train, just and it's gonna be done."
Got it. So, a couple of things I want to highlight there. And that is you mentioned when you first got started, you started getting the hang of it. You started realizing how to get your processes and systems set up. And one thing I hear a lot and that I've been through myself is you also mentioned analysis paralysis. So it's real easy to get caught up in, oh, I need to listen to more podcasts. I need to read more books. I need to talk to more people. And yeah, all that stuff is important, extremely beneficial to keep doing as you're going throughout the process. But nothing is more important than taking the action. You learn by doing. You just can't stop if it doesn't work out right the first time, because all of those failures, they're just lessons learned that you can apply to the next time. So it's important to think long term. You also mentioned your buddy that you had who was going through the same thing with you. That highlights the importance of network, having other people who are doing what you're doing or even who are further along in the path is crucial when doing something like this. So, all right, I want to talk a little bit more about the process of transitioning from your job to the full-time real estate investor. So what kind of things were you looking at as far as your financials, your expenses? Were you working? Did you need to reduce expenses? What kind of stuff on that front?
Yeah, some people look at me and they say, did you have this, you know, 5-year plan, 12-month plan? What was your launch pad security along this? And I had done I had 3 rentals and I had done, I think, 3 flips at that time. And things were kind of, I mean, they were going well, but it wasn't like, the passive income is just equaling my expenses, my income at my other job. So what ended up happening was I did my first wholesale right before this time. It was probably, well, I say right. I mean, this thing kind of took like, I don't know, 9 months. It took for anyone has tinkered in real estate. Very rarely does it go fast. You talk to a seller, you send letters. I mean, these relationships, they need to be nurtured. You got to follow up. It's not like, hey, you make a phone call, you make $1,000. It's very much the opposite. So I had this deal that was lined up, and it was like it was a $20,000 wholesale, and I had never done a wholesale, but there was this sense of, hey, if I fall on my face and everything is terrible, um, I'll go back to my job. I wasn't like above that at the time. I was, or just, you gotta, I have a family. I gotta make ends meet here. But with the properties I had, with the flips I had done, with the setup I had, the systems processes, it felt very much like I'm gonna go into this full time because at this point I'm doing stuff on nights and weekends. I mean, it's not like I'm really focusing on real estate. It's you take a phone call here and there, and then nights and weekends. So, and it wasn't terrible, but it did feel like 2 jobs to some degree. Um, so that wholesale gave me enough confidence to say, okay, I have some time here. Obviously, I had I think the number was 6 months reserves, whatever it is you feel like your cost of living is, give yourself 6 months of that if possible. But taking action definitely is the advice to don't feel like you have to have everything figured out. Of course, take take that with a grain of salt. We're all different. Um, I was at my job for 18 months when I was liking real estate. So that's a long time. But that gave me the time to kind of figure out, okay, I can leave this job, I can get started on something new, I can figure it out for a few months, hoping that it all works out. And that was 2 years ago. So that was, I think if you can get a wholesale or a flip kind of in a timing way that gives you time to like let that money cover your expenses. Um, that was what I needed to do.
Got it. So is that still the area that you're focused on with the in the single family space, or have you moved up to like multifamily or anything like that?
Yeah. I the short answer is I have changed my focus to syndication and buying bigger asset classes on teams of investors. And I want to say that there's so many different ways to make money in real estate. It's not like I'm better now because I've reached this thing. It's kind of how you set up your business. What is your bread and butter? What works for you? What worked for me was talking to my neighbors, writing a few letters with people that live close to me, um, finding key strategic partners like the mail lady who I knew, and just said, hey, if you come across any houses that look like they need some help or empty, shoot me a text. A couple of those people, I ended up, and it's not like you need to have like 10 houses a year. I bought maybe 1 or 2 houses a year for 3 years, and they were bought very well and structured very well that, I'm increasing my passive income. The flips that I did, you know, $30,000 or so each one. You just need a few of those to really start figuring out, wow, I can trade these things for these things and I don't have to work 40, 60 hours a week. So, so that's kind of where, so single family homes has been my gig, but I've also realized I don't love renovating houses. I hire a project manager to do everything. But it's hard to find a good one. And then even then, I'm still running to Home Depot to pick out fans, which I've learned is something I hate to do. So I'm trying to position myself now in a way that just utilizes my thrive zone, which is talking with other investors and other people who have money sitting on the sidelines to put into these deals for them to make passive income. And because of my ability to communicate with them in a respectful, polite way, kind, fun, a way that connects with them, it's a joy for them and for me. And we just keep going and we keep buying things.
Got that. Yeah, I love that. Love the term thrive zone, and love that you brought up the mail lady. That's an interesting one. I haven't heard of that before. That's great. So let's talk about kind of development. What kind of skills, personal development that is. What kind of skills have you been developing that have helped you connect, build relationships with other folks in the real estate industry?
So my background has been, well, graduated from college with a bachelor's in graphic design, which I pretty much have used in no way since I graduated college. Um, it did give me a good platform in my landscaping company because I started leaning into landscape design, and that allowed me to become a good salesman because I could talk about plants. And through that, I was basically our lead customer service rep, relations type manager. And we did more than just plants. We did home management, basically like a second home management. So these people that had second homes or third homes, um, where they were there at the house for less than a month a year, they would use us to take care of everything, inside the house, outside the house. So a skill set that I really started sharpening was customer service, communicating, follow ups, in more or less sales. I mean, it's kind of like a lot of things I just said. Just one of those. I know people have like a full time job in, but in this type of company, I did wear a couple different hats. So because I was a customer relations guy, um, I was able to take that same type of role and move it into real estate, except instead of trying to sell landscaping and home renovations, it was, hey, what do you think about investing in this dump property that we're going to, put $40,000 into. And when it's done, it's going to be worth this amount. And you get a check every month for this much. Uh, how's that sound? What do you think? And you get different responses. But I realized that by doing that and kind of getting good at what I was trying to sell and what, not just money, but like lifestyle, like, hey, with this check, this could be a supplemental income for what you're doing now, which might give you some more time with your family, or, you could take that vacation you always wanted to do, or, whatever it is. So that became the thing that I started building reps on. So the skill sets of communicating with people, following up, you'd be surprised when I say follow up, just follow up with people. And there's ways to do it that are like automated, but so many sales lost and made from follow up and lack of follow up. So even I'm about to go to a meeting this afternoon, and it's from a guy who I talked with a year ago about his parents who are 99 years old in my neighborhood. And I said, hey, if you ever, need some help with the house, or I'm a house buyer, give me a call. So he called me last week. And I obviously followed up with him, I don't know, 2 or 3 times from when I first talked to him, but it's amazing. People aren't doing it. You should do it today. Follow up with somebody today. Call your mom.
Yes. Couldn't agree more. It's the little things, like a lot of things seem so basic to people that they maybe don't put enough emphasis on them. But having been a passive investor in multiple deals myself, some with good operators who have good communication skills and good follow up and good transparency, and some who don't have those things. And while it may seem basic, it is extremely important, and it can really set you apart from others in that department.
It gets harder when you scale. When you start getting a bigger list, people start, falling apart a little bit. And I struggled hardcore with organization. That was not a natural strength of mine. Was just keeping a calendar, um, making my appointment. Just there was things I failed at early in my career, and it's shameful. And like I still get like sweaty thinking about how I just screwed it so bad with a couple different people where I missed things. And you learn from those, I hope. And you
So
feel, yes, go ahead.
no, so what have you done? Because I've struggled in that area myself. Not a naturally organized guy, and as you scale, as you start dealing with more people, becomes difficult. So what have you been doing to help out in that department?
Yeah, and still a lot more growth. So this isn't, Kenny's the expert at this. But I think that the big change that came from where I was in my W-2 to now, there is a level of, goals set for me with sales and customers and new customers and whatever. And you kind of don't know where your limits are. So you just kind of, I mean, at least I didn't. So it was just, yes, I was a yes man. Sure, I'll do that. I will do that. There's things I would say, and I would struggle with doing it. One of the things I feel like I'm good at is like when I feel like there's a customer that isn't like, this is a big meeting, like this person has a lot of money to spend. I would give them like all of myself. It would be like, forget my appointments. Like, this is what I need to do right now. And I should say, even when I say this out loud, it's like some people would say, Kenny, that's bad. Like, you shouldn't do that. You should make sure you kind of keep with everyone else. So, sort of that 80-20 Pareto principle, power rule. I don't know if anyone's heard of that, but there's a book out there, Pareto principle, um, where you basically give, the 20% of the whole is what fuels the other 80%. So the answer to your question is there's a, a mindset of not overcommitting that I think has been crucial since I've switched what I've been doing. So now instead of someone giving me my metrics and my goals of what I need to do, I set my own goals. So my phone isn't ringing off the hook forever. I'm not afraid to look at my email because of what I might have missed. I can manage much more my own schedule. So there's a lot of tools out there with emails and automations that I'm getting into, still haven't even arrived there yet, where I think there comes a point in everyone's life potentially where they want to scale, they want to do more, they want to grow. And that's when it's very important to have some of these systems in place. See, customer relations, maybe a CRM. Those are things that I kind of dabbled in when I was in my W-2, but I wasn't really doing it great. Because I also feel like, depending on who we're talking to today, our audience, what are your strengths? Are you really good in front of the customer? Are you just good at connecting and just presenting? Or are you a little more of like the analytical, like cross your T's, dot your I's? I've got my email to like, 0 in the inbox today. I find it difficult to be both. I know you can be both, but I leaned into like that customer relations type of personality, type of role, and I continue to work on the organization piece. The advice I would give to people is don't just throw away the organization piece. I used to have a mindset of, hey, I'm just going to be like a 10 to 10 over here, and organization stuff doesn't matter because that's not my strength. Wrong. Be careful with that one because I've realized if I work on this weakness, even though I don't need to be I don't need to be 10 of 10 on it. I need to raise the bar from where I am to like a 6, or something that's not a 3 or lower.
Absolutely. When I first, I love that you said kind of minimizing the amount of obligations and being careful with your time, because that you can really get out of control, especially if you're new to this and motivated. You can fill your whole calendar up with nothing but calls pretty easily. So protecting your time extremely important. I know I did all of that, and if you got a family and a wife, husband, whatever it may be, it's gonna come back to bite you. So protect your time, and then you mentioned a couple tools. Like there are a lot of great tools out there. Whether you're an investor, you've got a business or whatever it may be. But yeah, let's get back to the real estate stuff. So you started at the time 2019. Great. Yeah, we hit COVID, but ended up being a relatively good thing overall for certain types of real estate. Then going a couple years, late 2021, early 22 is when things started changing a little bit. How has your business shifted since the interest rates started hiking, since the economic climate started going downhill? What kind of things have you been dealing with?
The change from 2019 to today with interest rates and whatnot actually has been A good change for me. And I don't mean that necessarily like my business has increased, but my mindset has shifted in a way that I think has been more beneficial to how it was before. So when I got into this, I'm in the Greenville, South Carolina market. Taylor's is where I live. And just by the few properties that I bought early on did excellent with by the time I bought it, by the time I refinanced it. I mean, I just feel like appreciation just kept going and going and going. And they say, do not buy a property for appreciation. Run your numbers. Don't just bank on that. But when you're refinancing, the magic number is usually 75% in regards to what the appraised value is. The bank will give you 75% of that. So if you can buy it and renovate it and add in your closing costs and whatever else and stay below that, then you've basically bought a property for $0. But I ended up buying a landlord's properties. There's 5 of them. And then on top of that, I bought 4 other properties. This was all last year. So I'm thinking this is great. Like I don't have to find properties anymore. That's something I don't always, love doing is finding these properties, finding these deals. That's a question you get asked all the time. How do you find your deals? So, when you buy, a bundle of them, you can just focus on renovating them, which I have learned about myself is my drudgery zone. It's something I don't enjoy doing is working with these different contractors to fix the house up. I'd rather just keep buying or keep funding these deals. So, so I tried to refinance one and I just, kept running my numbers and was talking to banks and they basically said, hey, we won't give you 75%. We're going to give you 70%. And, interest rates are probably gonna be closer to like 7%, 8% versus, the 4.5 to 5, which I was used to. So my strategy basically changed to, and you need to have, they say have multiple exit strategies when you buy these properties. Don't just, bank on one thing working out. Cause if that one thing doesn't work out, you could lose money. You're in trouble. So my other strategy was, okay, I can't do a cash out refi. I'm going to sell these things. And one thing I just recently sort of have been structuring is my private money lenders who have given me money to buy these things. I've approached them and said, hey, what do you think about becoming an equity partner on this deal that you funded? Would you want to be a 50-50 partner? Keep your money in the deal, make this type of cash flow. I'm going to be the other 50% partner. I'm going to do a cash out refi on this deal and pay myself back a little bit. And I may make $200 a month or less. And you may make, $1,300, $1,500 a month. But I don't have to sell it now and I don't have to lose the money in the taxes or the realtor fees or everything else. We can just kind of keep it going. So those are some things that I've done differently, from the market changes, as well as the mindset of, do I want to just keep buying these single family homes and trying the Burr method over and over? Or is there a way to get into real estate that potentially just utilizes your thrive zone, things that you really like doing? And that's where I've joined a raise master, mastermind group called Raise Masters here with John. That's how we met. And it really focuses on raising capital, but there's a ton of other things going on in the real estate world. It's not like you just need to raise capital. There's finding deals and structuring them and whatever else. So everyone's kind of mixed together in this group. And now I can come into these bigger deals just doing what I like doing and still creating wealth and passive income.
Got it. Regarding wealth, what do you think's the biggest misconception with most people, with we'll say the largest class, like the middle class, working class? What do you think's their biggest misconception about generating wealth versus what the ultra wealthy are doing with their money?
Hmm. Well, I can't say I am. I've not arrived. I've when I meet with my private money lenders, they look at me and they say like, you've got energy, you've got, focus on buying real estate. Those are things that maybe they don't, or they have energy towards something else. So working though with a lot of these wealthy people, to me, the ultimate wealth is having freedom of time. It's not, the goal is not to have these, this $1 billion. It is, I want to have the freedom to go do really whatever I want to do with who I want to do it with, who I love, family, without being strapped to like, oh, I got to go to the office today. To me, that is the wealth. That is the goal. That's the, financial freedom that I hope that, I hope to achieve. I have not achieved it yet, but, so I think that's the mindset is how can I keep trading not my hours for dollars if possible? How can my money make money for me and I can do what I want to do?
Excellent. Love it. All right, Kenny. Got time for one last question. It's the question I ask all of my guests. Quick background, we discussed it a little bit before we hit record, but I work at a nuclear power plant that at one point was set to shut down in 2025. So I made it my mission to replace my W 2 income with passive income from real estate investing. And so you've managed to escape the W 2 world and create a lifestyle where you're in control of your time. Now, what would you offer to folks who are in a similar boat? They're not happy with their situation, they want more control. What would you say to those folks?
The question I've been asking myself, and I'd say even just people from church as friends, is that concept of the thrive zone. Michael Hyatt wrote a book about free. It's called Free to Focus, and it talks about your drudgery zone and your thrive zone. The thrive zone is the place where you love what you do and you're really good at it. So when I talk to people and say, "What is your thrive zone?" I think if you could ask yourself that, "What is my thrive zone? What do I love doing and I'm really good at it?" Define that for yourself. That's a hard question to answer. I mean, I was stuck at my former jobs trying to figure that out. Hey, if I leave this job, what am I going to do? I don't know until I started, sort of figuring out this is what I'm good at. This is what I love doing. So I would say figure out what your thrive zone is and try to find as many ways to stay there in your day as possible. It's not going to be a 24-hour thing. Hopefully it's a few hours right now, 2 hours you're in your thrive zone. But if you're just filling yourself with all these things that you hate doing and you're only in your thrive zone for a little bit, um, you're that's going to only last so long until you're just beaten down. So that would be my advice is, ask yourself, what's my thrive zone? Define it and then share it with people and, um, and see what happens.
Excellent. Love it. All right, Kenny, where can folks go to reach out if they want to follow along or learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, John. My Instagram is where I make most of my updates, and that's going to be East West 864. So my grandma would always say East West, home's best. And I'm a big believer of that. Um, Home is where the heart is. And no matter where you go in life, the best place to be is at home, in my opinion. So East West 864, that's my company. And feel free to follow my journey there.
Excellent. All right, Kenny, thanks so much for your time today. Really enjoyed it. Have a good one. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Appreciate it, John. Thanks so much for allowing me to speak.